Today we're going to dive into some of the biggest challenges, really, and opportunities shaped in journalism as we know it today. We stand at crossroads. I firstly do want to say that our program and today's forum is really the efforts of our board of industry advisors and mentors, which are a global community, but also our participants, our faculty, and of course, a whole range of sponsors that make this possible and that invest in this program more than just. Amongst those is the Google News Initiative, international media support, Chrysalis Transformations, Media Lab Jordan. To guide us through today's conversations, we're joined by exceptional panels and panel chairs. And then our first panel, and it's Dr. Marja Heinonen, who's chairing the first panel as a senior research associate at the Media Relations Studio. Marja, over to you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and we will start this afternoon, which I hope will be very rewarding and thought-provoking for you. And the name for our first session is Innovative Approaches to Reach New Audiences. And I would like to add there, to reach new audiences to climate-related issues. And I'm just the chair here because the main challenging and interesting content will be made by our speaker, who is Boris van Wesseling, and he is a climate journalist, and he's climate journalism development expert, and he mentions in many occasions that it's media and journalism. And when it comes to my background, I very well understand why you always want to mention those both. He's an independent climate journalist and communication specialist, and he's committed to fixing the information ecosystem around climate change and supports programming efforts that connect media and journalists, civil society, academia, and the public-private sector. And he has successfully worked in many different projects, and today we are especially interested in his latest project, which he has been doing with the Royal Academy of Art, and he will soon tell you a little bit more about that. But before I give the floor to him, even I see he is very excited that he would like to take this already. I just say a few words about the need for addressing this issue, that why we need to find new ways of storytelling, to find new audiences. I think these things which I mentioned might be quite obvious to many of those, but I think it's still always worth mentioning, and I'm sure that Boris can elaborate those more. That the most important is that's these climate issues, they are existential issue for the humanity, and I think that's why we cannot, even though it's not always easy to get our messages through, it's vital for us. And then okay, the second thing is that there's a lot of information out there, a lot of scientific information, a lot of stories, and I think it's more like overload of information. It's not that the need for more information, and that also stresses the need for new ways of getting the info through, or maybe it's not just information, maybe it's something else, because Boris is talking about the connection between journalism and art. Maybe we should be able to touch more of people's feelings. I don't know. Maybe Boris will tell us that too. Okay, and then there is the third aspect, which I find very challenging, is the complexity of the whole phenomenon. We know that climate issue, like biodiversity, they are called these wicked problems, that we can't look them as separate things because they are interrelated. We talk a lot about these systems and systems thinking, which we should have, but if everything is in connection with everything else, you can all understand how difficult it's to make those issues so simple that people can grab them somehow. And then last, I want to share my personal experience of all these things, because I've been trying to write a book for middle-aged people who are not like very climate conscious. And I started with digging into information, and I personally I became depressed because it was too depressing and too much. And then I started going more towards these feelings, emotions, and that is the reason why at once when Francois told me about Boris and his approach, combining journalism with art, I was so excited, because I thought, oh, here's the man who knows the answers for these questions. So, Boris, the floor is yours.
Marja, thank you so much for introducing me, and you set the bar, the expectations quite high. I'm sitting here in my living room here in Amsterdam, and I salute you all in the room. Also online, I'm very happy that I'm able to talk with you and share a couple of experiences and insights. While Marja was introducing me, she said something related to the information ecosystem and my strive to fix it. And fixing the information ecosystem, it's a bit like a Don Quixote kind of feeling sometimes, because it is very difficult. But my approach is actually to tickle the media a little bit more, to pick up a more proactive role in the information ecosystem, not only reacting on news, but also become a little bit more proactive in the domain. And I think I'm trying to do just that, and I try to look for new ways of talking about media. And before we jump into this conversation, I just want to pay tribute to all the climate and environmental journalists out there in the world, and specifically those that are now trapped in conflict and war, that are under attack of daily suffering, especially in Gaza, in the Middle East. So I hope that people start protecting journalists and others, academics and students alike. But that being said, I will now jump into a small presentation. And if you have questions, please, you can go to the next slide. And the slides will be run from your end. So we have a nice waltz dance together in going through the presentation. So let's try and make it fun and nice. If you have a question, stand up and shout it out, and Francois will most definitely bring the question also to Marja and us. But here the first picture basically says it all. I think if you would open, let's say, the wildfires, the big climate disasters that we are facing, it's time to act, and the urgency is yesterday, not tomorrow. But it is a bit of a tricky thing. We have been saying this for almost more than a decade or two. If you open, let's say, a media news report from 10 years ago on wildfires, the same headlines are there. And basically, we can duplicate the stories that we have done in 10 years ago and what we have done this summer during the wildfire season. So people, when I was not long ago, I was in a bar and having a chat with somebody who was just reading the news, and he was saying, like, I'm so fed up with all this climate journalism, climate news. I hate it. I don't want to hear any more of it. It's totally bullshit, and it's not for me anymore. So and basically, and we can go to the next slide. It the the issue is that we need to find new forms of storytelling if we want to connect with audiences, an audience that are impacted by climate change, audiences that need to sacrifice because of climate change, and people that are new to the domain, that have different needs of information. So we all, yeah, I'm talking and preaching to the choir, because you're all experts in the field of journalism, and you know all the challenges and storytelling dilemmas around climate reporting. Related to science, getting the right people in front of your sources, the data, but at the same time also looking at a storytelling approach that will not lead to news avoidance, and that you actually can become more inclusive and reach audiences that you do not reach before, and at the same time being empathic about the people that needs to sacrifice and give some agency, because it would be very much needed to make booking a airplane ticket as easy as a train ticket. So this level of agency into storytelling, it is very much needed, and so that actually um, this draws a little bit the picture of the urgency to change and to innovate. And when I was talking not too long ago at the COP27, I was talking with an investigative journalist from Jordan, and you can go to the next slide, please. And we were coming together and saying, like, and he said, like, we have brilliant stories. We really want to bring them in the open, but we don't get enough space to publish them, because there's too much repression in our environment. These people do not allow us to publish what we would like to publish, because it touches corruption, wrongdoings of politicians, of people, of businesses, and we are very. At the same time, also we have people that are affected by climate change, that are women in rural areas, and when we try to interview them, they don't want to be part of the journey. So we need to find a new way of telling these stories, so that we can actually bring these stories out there at the place where policies are shaped, but also where there's a bit of more of a climate accountability. So we sat together, and basically it led to a conversation to where we would sit together. It's like, what do we need to do to change the storytelling approach? And then we thought, like, you know what, why don't we connect with art and design more, and see if we can try to collaborate together in formulating a response to censorship and in climate investigations, or to look at different storytelling approaches, like to counter the fatigue of climate journalists. um, I already touched the new perspectives, but it's not only about including the voice of women or marginalized communities, but it's also about giving a voice to voiceless, meaning also give a voice to nature, or to wildlife, to people, to the ground, to the sea. So how can you actually give a voice to these other perspectives? Um, maybe, and I think from a journalistic perspective, very a good need to touch upon is to see how can investigative stories that sometimes are being researched before publication for years, so maybe 1 year or half a year or maybe 2 years, how can we make sure that the life cycle of that story can be expanded? So how can we make sure that we can transform stories in different formats, so that it can get another life? So these elements brought us together, with the Arish, the investigative journalism network in Jordan, Amman. Please, in December, there's again the Arish Forum. If you can go, please go there online or go there and see. It's very much interesting to go there as well. And together with the Royal Academy of Art, with the Faculty of Nonlinear Narrative, we sat together, and then we decided to do a summer workshop of 1 week where we selected 3 stories, 3 investigations of investigative journalists with 6 artists, alumni of the faculty. And I will the Falcon story, which is the story where the migration routes of falcons are affected by climate change and therefore become more vulnerable to illegal hunting in North Africa and in Libya and Egypt. These illegal hunting takes place where falcons are sold for over €500,000 to rich sheikhs in the Gulf. They travel with a private plane. It's very interesting to see. So this story actually could provide a different perspective, and by allowing artists to think together in the making process of the story, to add different multiple layers of storytelling into this particular story. And another story was about wildfires, and the wildfire story was about North Africa. And what they try to do in the research is to come with different data sets, and data sets are always very difficult to make them more alive and show a little bit more the interconnection of different data in a compelling way in the storytelling. And so here the storytelling was about the number of forest fire, the fires in Morocco per province, and then if the forest that would stay behind, and also the concrete, so the number of hotels or other urban development projects that came to replace the forest. And if you look at the next slide, is that the picture that you will see here is that you see underneath is the ashes that represent the number of forests burned, and then above you see the log that is above it is the number of forests still standing, and the red houses is the number of hotels. And these are 3 data sets into one visual. And if you are able to showcase this, and we could showcase this at the COP28, you have a different kind of storytelling experience at the hand of a visual in a public space where different people can come together and see the story. This art installation also had a video of about 7 minutes on the different elements of the story, and of course the display and the photography behind it. So this shows a little bit also on how art can actually be a friend of investigative journalists to make the story alive in a different way. And it was very much valued by the journalists and the audience. And it led to actually to policy changes, but I can come later to that. So if you look at the impact of this 3 investigative stories that we have taken, in the collaboration between artists and journalists, is that yes, the formats, the audience reach has tremendously increased. So we have been able to bring the story to the COP28. Had through the live stream more than 100,000 views. We have an art installation, we have video, we have different video cast with policymakers in it. It traveled beyond borders, basically, so it was republished in different languages. in English and even in Spanish. Regional media picked it up, and it also, therefore also it extended the lifespan of the story. It's still continuing to spread, and people are connecting these stories to their own context. So the local relevance became a global relevance. So that was quite impressive to see. We could include voices of women that normally don't speak to the media by using animated video. And that made the stories more inclusive. So who are impacted? So you give a voice to people that mostly are censored or by cultural norms are not being able to talk to media. The brand recognition for the media itself, in this case, we got a lot of recognition also through UNESCO World Press Freedom Day and international press, but it really led to some kind of a flagship report for the media outlet itself, where it could also portray itself as a supporter of climate investigations and in taking care of good journalism and valuing journalism in a different way, and try to reach different audiences. Some of the artists that I'm following is Mona, and maybe the next slide. Some media outlets are really amazing by already including people like Mona Shalabi in the newsroom and giving a space to designers and to do much more in data visualization and other kind of ways to include artistic interpretation of stories as it goes much more into different journalistic formats. So like also on TikTok or Instagram or WhatsApp, you can actually really find new ways to reach the new audiences that we need to reach with very important stories that are connected to the changing of the climate. So yeah, Marja, let's dig into some questions maybe.
Okay, I have one question. So, what do you think? How could we promote that these new ways of storytelling could be included in the newsrooms, and what's stopping them? What's been stopping them until now?
My perception is that people are a little bit afraid, I think, to take on a more of an interdisciplinary approach to storytelling. I would say. I think that it is going out of your comfort zone. People think it will take too much time and money. I think the people look at the costs and the problems rather than the opportunities. From my point of view, this is a clear way to make your story live longer. If you are able to, if you allow your journalists to investigate a story of like 6 months or a year, then it would be a shame not to revalue this kind of story in a artistic interpretation or in a different way, and make it travel and look at vehicles of storytelling that can reach out to tremendous new audiences. So it is also a income generating exercise. It's not a cost item. It's an economic opportunity, I would say also.
And now I see there's a hand raised, like it's Sarah. I think it's somebody has raised online.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a really quick question, Boris. I mean, I notice working with the Climate Arena people that these investigations do tend to be longer than perhaps we're used to in just a sort of busy newsroom scenario. What's the average time, if you can put an average time on it, would you say, for, you know, what about something that you've done there? How long did that take to come together?
Just to respond to that, so in terms of the time, we collaborated with 3 investigative stories that were already on, let's say, 80% ready, so or 70% ready. So some investigations took like 6 months, some 8 months. Previously, before working together with the artist, but we sat down together for 1 week in the summertime, and then to really unravel the story together and try to bring the story back in it, and took the alternative storytelling perspective, this perspective of the falcon, for example, by bringing the storytelling vehicle into a passport, where you could see the migration route in the stamps of the passport, and it could relate to the storytelling elements in each stamp would have one section of the story. And then I think it was November. So it took about 2 to 3 months, a little bit back and forth. So and then we set up the exhibition in early December. So the exhibition design took, let's say, a couple of days. So it is, in terms of time, I must say they did a wonderful job.
Great. Thank you so much, Boris, and thank you, Marja,